Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. Today we have the best Pool 1 and Pool 2 discard build that you can build. And this is an archetype that gets a lot better as you go on, but it also gets a little bit less consistent. And so to build a discard archetype, we need to make sure that whenever we do discard a card, it's going to be an impactful one. And so to do that, we mix a couple of archetypes here. We mix a zoo or an aggro style where we're playing a lot of cards out onto the board, a lot of really cheap, low-cost cards, with our discard cards and the discard targets. And so a Pool 1 discard deck is going to revolve around Apocalypse. Being able to discard Apocalypse once or even twice will make your last turn play that much more impactful, and you can position yourself in a position to win a little bit easier. Now, this can get outpowered. It is a very telegraphed last turn play, and it gets a little bit easier to do this in Pool 2. So only one card will change between Pool 1 and Pool 2, and that is going to be Korg. So to transition from Pool 1 to Pool 2, we will take out Korg, and we will add in Swarm. Now in Pool 2, Swarm gives you a secondary target. If you can discard your Swarm, that is going to come back into your hand as a 0-cost card, or 2 0-cost cards that you can throw out onto the board along with either a Chavez if you didn't get the upside of discarding your Apocalypse, or along with your Apocalypse, maybe a 12-power Apocalypse if you got him discarded at least once. And so our discard cards, or the ones that are going to synergize well with discarding, is going to be Blade, Lady Sif, who will discard the highest cost card from our hand, and then Swordmaster. So if we can limit the cards that we have remaining in our hand to just Apocalypse and just Swarm, then we can guarantee that we're going to get some kind of upside from these discard cards. We also have Wolverine in here as a kind of splash of, if he gets discarded, you get the upside of him being played automatically onto the board, but most of the time he's just kind of lackluster. And then the rest of our cards are low-cost cards, along with the really powerful tempo card, Angela, to allow us to get a potential win condition in a secondary lane. And then in Pool 2, if we do run up against a Killmonger, we're relatively covered, because even if our 1-cost cards do get destroyed, that is not all that we're relying on. We have the Angela that can continue to get buffed up. We have Bishop that will buff up from every Swarm that we drop, every card that we drop. And if we've discarded Swarm, we can fill those lanes back up after the Killmonger comes down. But that is the rundown of the deck list. Let's go ahead and jump into a couple of Pool 2 matches. All right, so first up we have Hope Valor. The first location is Savage Land, which does work to kind of clog our board a little bit. Let's go ahead, and I don't think with this list, I don't think we go ahead, I don't think we wait to play our cards. We're gonna go ahead and play Nightcrawler. If we had Angela, maybe we would wait one additional turn. But without Angela in hand, oh wow, and then Shadowland, so our board is pretty clogged pretty quickly. Let's go ahead and skip this turn. We don't want to play Blade. There's too many decent targets for it to hit, and we want to kind of control what that RNG aspect can be. And so on this turn, we're probably dropping our Bishop. We can drop our Bishop onto the board. We do get Swarm, so next turn we can do both Swordmaster and Blade as a way to try to discard our Apocalypse and our Swarm, and we're going to go ahead and snap off of that. We can play our Bishop into Savage Land, because we're always going to be able to move our cards over on turn 6 into New York if we need to reposition. But this gives us a kind of a 1-lane win, and then we have that alternate condition of moving it if we need to. And so that way we're not overly committing to one particular play line or play. We can now do Swordmaster and Blade, and for similar reasons, we can go ahead and stack both of those in Shadowland. We can move our Nightcrawler out even before turn 6 to create an additional space, and it really depends on what we discard here. Swarm is less impactful because we've had 3 spaces on our board clogged just from RNG locations, and so not the best, but not the worst either. Oh no, and they get both of our discards blocked with a very well timed Cosmo. I don't even have words to describe that, other than beautiful. Okay, so let's play our Angela, our Swarm, our Iceman. We do have a Chavez that's going to come in, and it's going to be a little bit more impactful than our Apocalypse, since our discard portion got absolutely leveled. And then we're going to be able to move the Swordmaster over. They did push an Iron Man into Shadowland, which is kind of strange. I mean, you know, maybe it works out for them. Maybe they are doing it as a kind of diversion and they're going to shift it over along with like a Cosmo and Captain America and just go all out in this lane. But I think we play into the fact that maybe they don't. We're going to play Chavez into the far left lane as a kind of push or extra. We're going to maneuver our cards around a little bit, but not in the way that I originally was thinking. I was originally thinking we play Chavez over here, but if they shift cards over, that may leave this one weak. It may also leave this one weak. It just depends on where they reinvest their power. And so this is going to give us a pretty decent spread across the board. Now, it would be better had we discarded our cards a few times, but unfortunately we have not. And so, oh no, the Chavez and the Savage Land would have been, it looks like, the right call. That's what I had originally thought, but I talked myself out of it. We might still get the win condition, potentially with the, yeah, we do, with the armor that only ties the far left lane. The Shadowland, they lose that by 12. We lose New York by 6. So because we have a pretty strong lane and we were able to kind of compete with their Iron Man, we were able to hold down and win the tiebreaker somehow. After that amazing Cosmo counter, just bravo. So we got very lucky there. Let's go ahead and jump into the next one. All right, so with this deck list, you're going to have to weather some ups and downs. For sure. It's not going to be all fantastic plays. And that is kind of one of the drawbacks of this archetype, is that whenever it works, it can pop off really, really well. But there are times where it's not going to swing in your favor. You're going to have a 1 out of 3 shot for your Swordmaster, and it's just going to brick your game. And so I think you have to go into this list knowing or having those expectations of it can go pretty poorly pretty quickly. And so this is going to lock down after turn 4. We're going to go ahead and play our Wolverine. It's one of those cards that you don't really want to hold if you get the upside out of it, and you naturally have your discard cards that you want to play. Great. You can potentially get some upside, but I don't find it effective or efficient to hold him and just try to make sure that he gets discarded, because one, that clogs up your board. It could have been a 4 power swing with your Apocalypse instead. It could have been a double swarm that you got for free out of it, instead of just playing the additional 2 energy. And so especially since we would have just played an Iceman instead, I think it's worth it to just go ahead and play it out onto the board. So we are going to be able to get the Lady Sif to trigger our Apocalypse here, for a little bit of upside for us. So the question becomes, do we play it here or do we compete for this lane? I think we tried to, I think we're going to lean all the way into Kiln. We're going to lean all the way into it. We're going to do our Lady Sif. Next turn, I think we're probably going to go Swordmaster, unless we draw something else like a Bishop maybe. Bishop may kind of persuade us to go with the Bishop and the Swordmaster instead. But otherwise, we're absolutely going to go Swordmaster and just let that discard happen. Okay, so they lock down Muir Island with a Storm. We have one more turn to play there, but if they drop something like a Jessica Jones, that's going to be a really hard lane to compete with. So let's go ahead and go with the Swordmaster. It could give us the upside of discarding our Apocalypse, potentially our Swarm. Maybe we draw into Blade next turn and we can discard one more card before the end of the game. But I think we just abandoned the flooded location. I don't think we win that one. I think this is either a Sunspot or a Jessica Jones, and we weren't going to be able to compete with that with our Swordmaster. Unfortunately, Swordmaster discards our Iceman instead of one of our high impact cards. So they did end up roundabout going with the Jessica Jones through a Jubilee, which is what it is. Okay, so we have a couple of options. We could go with kind of mitigating our chances here, or we could kind of go with spreading out our chances here. We could either go with Blade, which then could discard Swarm, giving us 3 cards to drop on that final turn, or we can play Swarm this turn, we can play Blade. That's going to give us a 16 power Apocalypse to lean into. And so we've already snapped. It comes down to a potential Danger Room trigger, and so they have an Infinite, so it's going to be a potential, it's the 25% chance. 25% chance that it destroys their card, 25% chance that it destroys ours. If neither triggers, then we will win in the power comparison, because we're going to have an additional 16 versus their 20. But it all comes down to a 25% chance on both of our ends. And so let's lock it in. We're gonna go to the Danger Room Casino. If you watched my last video, Danger Room, okay, they didn't want to, maybe they were hoping for an Infinite, but they didn't have it in hand yet. Or maybe they just didn't want to risk the additional two cubes on a potential 25% chance, because they would have had to have it trigger on our end and not their end to have that win condition for themselves. And so that one, not ideal. We did get a couple of decent discards with our Apocalypse, which can give you a competitive advantage on that final turn. Let's go ahead and jump into the next one. All right, so next up we have Simplify Manager. The first location being Mojo World is decent if we can get a discard trigger of our Swarm. It could end up being decently worthwhile for us. We are going to play our Angela first. Ooh, and with the Citadel, the locations are actually going to shift after turn 4, and so that's going to make it even more advantageous for us to have the flexibility of our potential Swarm play. So we're going to start stacking into mid with Angela. We're going to do probably a Nightcrawler and a Wolverine on turn 2 or on turn 3. And then if Mojo World goes here, great. We're already kind of stacked. If not, then maybe we have the Swarms to push the negative zone power into a range where we're okay with. So let's go ahead and lock these two in. If we draw into something that's a 1 cost, so like an Ant-Man, we can actually guarantee the trigger of our Swarm because it will be the lowest cost card when we play Lady Sif and Iceman. And so we do get the Blade, so we can actually guarantee that Swarm discards here because it's going to be our highest cost card. So we can do, I think we lean in a little bit and gamble here. Let's play our Lady Sif into the Citadel. Let's play our Blade. Lady Sif is going to trigger first and discard our Swarm. That makes our Blade's potential to discard the Swarm a 2 out of 3 chance instead of a 50-50. So it's going to bring our odds up to 66% that it's going to discard Swarm because Lady Sif will have already triggered once on it and we'll have 2 in return. And so we could potentially have 3 Swarms to play on the final turn of the game, which could give us quite a bit of flexibility in where and how we drop our power. And so then if they do have a Killmonger, we can fill in those spaces. Unfortunately, we get the 33% chance. And we discard our Iceman. It is okay. Ooh, Iceman hits one of our Swarms, which increases its cost to 1, making it more difficult to drop on that final turn. So we'll probably drop it this turn. So we are currently winning this location by quite a bit. Let's play our Bishop, let's play one of our Swarms, and that's going to give us the flexibility to maybe drop over into negative zone if we think that they're going to abandon this one because it's -3 power per card you put there. Them flooding Mojo World seems pretty difficult. I think we just have a pretty good spread on them by being able to, 1, move our Nightcrawler, 2, have a free Swarm to drop on the board somewhere. Bishop is going to continue to grow over time, and we just have quite a bit of flexibility. So they do drop their strong guy. They drop Blade, which discards their Swordmaster. Okay, so that brings them up to 17 in this lane whenever it is in effect. So if they drop a Blue Marvel at the best, they top deck a Blue Marvel. This is going to be 17, and then it'll be 21 total in the best case scenario. We can move our Nightcrawler over here. It's going to be -1, but if they don't push any power here, then I think it's fine. We can play Chavez here because I think they probably have a Blue Marvel play. And then we go with our Swarm over here. That's gives us a 3 power and then another 2 power bonus because of the cards that we dropped, buffing up our Bishop. That is the read that I'm going with. It's a very small chance that they drew into their Blue Marvel, but that's the condition that we're playing around right now. And so over in the negative zone, they end up dropping 1 card, and that ends up being, oh well, I guess okay, they're Chavez. I'm not quite sure why they ended up snapping back, unless they thought that this was going to be enough of a trigger. Maybe they forgot that we still had the movement of our Nightcrawler to move out of Mojo World. I don't know, but we did collect 8 cubes. That game was one that we didn't have Apocalypse, but we still found a win condition and being able to flood the board, buff our Bishop, buff our Angela. And I think overall we got kind of lucky in the card placement on that one. But if you play around the locations and the information that you have, you can find yourself in a much better or more advantageous spot. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.